Okay, we're going to get going. I'd like to welcome everyone to this very first McGill Women in Sport Roundtable event around gender equity, which we've titled Making Change Happen. My name is Sylvie Béliveau, she, her, and I'm the head of the Women in Sport program at McGill University. It's a pleasure in these virtual times to welcome you to my home, virtually redesigned to make you feel we are together at McGill University. Sit back, have lunch maybe, tea, or and enjoy the discussion. We'd like to begin by acknowledging that McGill University is situated on the traditional territory of the Kunyan Kehaka, a place which has long served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst nations. We recognize and respect the Kunyan Kehaka as the traditional custodians of the lands and waters on which we meet today. Before we go into our discussion with our panelists, I'd like to go over some logistics. Know that we are recording this session. Microphones will be muted. Please keep your video off to help with streaming. We're engaging for roughly an hour, and we'll start with the conversation with our panelists and open for a Q&A at the end. It will be conducted in English, but you're welcome to write your comments in both official languages, comments and questions. I'll be co-moderating this session with Tia Lore. Throughout the hour together, we'll be managing the discussion, the time, and the chat box. Tia is a recent graduate from McGill who played for the Martlet soccer team, worked to promote varsity sporting events, and was part of the varsity council for 3 years. And I'm grateful to have her as an associate with the Women in Sport program. Great to see you, Tia.
Thank you, Sylvie. I'm super excited to have some great conversations with some awesome people who I am going to introduce. For starters, we have Guillen De Merce. She is a professor at Laval University and president of Égale Action. Guillen has promoted gender equality in sport for most of her life, and over the years has become the go-to leader, researcher, and advocate on issues of women's education and gender equity in Quebec and Canadian sport. Next, we have Marika Guerin, an alumna of McGill who played for the Martlet basketball team, helping them win the first youth sports basketball national championships in school history, along with 3 provincial titles. She now serves as the manager of communications and community for the Ottawa Blackjacks. I'd also like to introduce Ashley Norfleet, an alumna of McGill who played for the Martlet volleyball team and traded in her jersey for a head coaching position at Dawson College, as well as an assistant coaching position at McGill. She also serves as a mentee of Coach Canada's first Black female mentorship coach program. Also joining us is Alyssa Chechere, also known as Chech, an alumna of McGill who played for the Martlet hockey team, winning 5 provincial championships and playing in 5 consecutive national gold medal games. She is now the interim head coach of the women's hockey team after serving as an assistant coach since 2014. And last but not least, Jose Luis Valdez, an alumnus of McGill and head coach of the McGill women's soccer team. He has been and continues to be a strong ally for women in sport, creating opportunities for female athletes and mentoring many female coaches who are now coaching at elite levels. And I will pass the mic back to you, Sylvie. You are muted.
That would happen. Okay, thank you all for accepting our invitation. And just before I throw the first question as a background information, just want to go back to the beginning. The Women in Sport program at McGill first started during the fall of 2018 after McGill University's Department of Athletics received $3.5 million gift from McGill alumni Cheryl Kerr and David Kerr. McGill University's Department of Athletics has maintained a tradition of supporting female student athletes and gender equity for decades, and well-known female athletes have emerged from our programs. Those who are attending today, if you want to acknowledge some of them, please feel free to add their names in the chat box. The Women in Sport programs comes in to accentuate the efforts on two major pillars: enhancing McGill's female coaching staff and building targeted counseling and career development programs for female athletes. But what we quickly realized soon in the process of implementation is that we're one in a much bigger sport ecosystem. We know that we're not the entry point of sport where people gain their first experience, whether coaches and athletes, and we work in a way to make women progress and move them along. Therefore, we're a player striving for gender equity, but we're living in a much bigger landscape. So my first question will go to you, Guillen. Gender equity is not a new topic. I remember this question traveling by my side throughout my career. So where is it at in 2021?
Merci, Sylvie. So I think that for sure we have made some gain. Like if we go back, like when I was a kid, I wanted to play hockey, and there were no team for me to play hockey back then. Hopefully today more girls have access to hockey. So I would say that regarding the participation aspect of girls and women in sport, we have much more possibilities right now, more choices than we were used to have. Where we still have a major problem, where we are still stuck in the mud, I would say, is that when we look at the leadership positions, either in the administrative side of sport or in the coaching position. So at the moment, if we look at the actual statistics that we have at the Canadian landscape, and those are very recent statistics from 2020. So if you look in particular at head coach women's sport, so we're talking about women's sport, and we only have 26% of women coaches. And if we take all the sports together, men, women, co-ed sports, then the number drops back to under 20% of women coaches across the country. This particular slide is around U Sport and CCEA. And why do we pick those two contexts is because this is probably the only places in Canada where you can coach and have a living out of coaching, because in Canada we are not very privileged. Like many coaches cannot live from coaching, we know that. But at the university level and at the collegiate level, you do have that opportunity. And we would think that within the education system, we would have more room for women coaches, but obviously this is not the case. And if we look at, we have recent statistics from Quebec from 2019, and the number of women coaches, head coach is 19%. So within all the sport federation in Quebec, it's 19%. Here in 2021, still the number are so low. So the next question that comes is, how come still in 2021, we have those low numbers of women coaches? And most of the time, what we will hear is that, well, women are not interested. Well, maybe they don't have all the competencies that are necessary. Oh, but family work balance, it's too hard. They will have kids and they won't commit as much as men would do. So this is the typical answer we get. And when we look at the research, what we have learned from research, we can explain those numbers at four different levels. So this is the ecological model that have been used in one of our key researcher, Nicole Lavoie from the Tucker Center. So we can explain that, yes, of course, they might have some individual reasons why a woman won't get to coaching. Yes, she might have other priorities. And we had, maybe Marika will talk a little bit more, like it can be a choice not to go further. So it might be at the individual level. If you go at the interpersonal level, then this is where you can have, maybe there's a boys network, men helping other men, or we could have great allies like Jose, who could help that relationship and bring more women into coaching. And then you look at the organizational level. So what are we doing as an organization? McGill program is an example at that level. So are there anything that we are doing as an organization to bring more women? So where do we recruit? Is it, so I have a colleague of mine who says the arm length strategy. So you just recruit within your own circle, people that you know already. So sometimes when the job is advertise, it's just within a very restricted number of people. Sometimes it's not even advertised. So we just call the person, oh, we're pretty sure that he will do a good job. I know him. It will be good. So how do you recruit? How do you post? Where do you post? And once you have the woman within the system, what do you do to support her? Is there any support system, or she's the only one? I love to give the example of my own university at Laval. We have 18 clubs, one woman coaches. We're the worst in Canada, and it's in my backyard. So it brings me to, yeah, I don't like that, but that's a reality, and it's a university setting. So what does the organization is doing to bring more women? And then we look at the societal level. So this is, as a society in Quebec, in Canada, we all have stereotypes, biases, like we think that women are not competitive enough, are not aggressive enough to be good coaches, because we do have that vision of coaching, which is still very male oriented. And again, it's not to say that men coaches are not doing a good job. Jose, I won't put you on the spot there. So men coaches are doing a good job. This is not the question. The question is, how come women don't have access? And most of the time it's because we still questions their abilities to be great coaches. It is still on the spotlight. So we are not quite sure all the time, will she be competitive enough? And I will just finish with that example. Like, I do have a grad student working with me, and she just had an interview to coach a midget female teams in hockey. And during the interview, at 3 times, the panel, which of course were all male, 4 males, they kept asking her, are you sure you're competitive enough to coach at the midget level? 3 times, 3 times. And she just couldn't believe it. And then she came back and told me that, like, and she said, you know what? I think that the interview, it was just bullshit, really, because they had made their mind way before the interview. And of course, she didn't get the job. So we need to do some work at all the different levels. And we need to stop thinking that it's a woman's issue and that we need to fix the woman to fit in the system. It's way larger than that.
Thank you, Guillen. And I think at the federal level, also there has been a major shift with Minister Duncan, who's made a decision that by 2035, if I'm right, we're looking to have the organizations meeting parity. Am I right on this one?
Absolutely. And I think that when we think at the higher level, the government, they do have a role to play, especially because if we look at the sport in Canada, it's public money which we put in sport. So it's my taxes and yours who are paying for that. So you're right, Sylvie. When Minister Duncan announced $30 million for women in sport in Canada, that was a historical moment. Like, it has never happened before. And it gave a big push for women in sport. And one of the output was the creation of the E-Alliance, the Research Center for Gender Equity in Sport in Canada, the first of its kind. And so, yes, the government has a role to play. And 2035, it's like tomorrow morning. So I'm just curious to see if we'll reach that. But for sure, at the societal level, definitely the government has a big role to play.
Thank you. It's interesting because looking at the model, I see now for myself anyway, the role that I've got in 3 different circles, right? The first circle, individually decisions I've made, going into interpersonal, how it can assist and help and influence others, as well as in the organization right now with McGill University Women in Sport program. But we've got great people on our panel today. who have gone through those different circles as well, I've grown in that landscape. And I'm going to turn the next question to Alyssa, who our interim coach women's hockey team. You've gone from being an athlete at McGill, and I'm sure before that in the sport landscape. So what has been your journey? What was your motive to move into coaching?
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo what Guillen said. Like, the opportunities when I was younger were very limited on the girls' side. So I grew up playing hockey with boys because there wasn't much girls' hockey available. And so for as long as I remember, the development on the female side has been a challenge and a process. It definitely has evolved and over time and become more available and, I guess, accepting for that matter. But growing up, there was a lot of pushback and comments, and not so much from my teammates, but more so from players and parents that I played against. So, I mean, it wasn't necessarily, accepted at that time. There was very limited options. But growing up, I had great people and role models in high school and CEGEP, people who were dedicated, passionate, believed in the female game, and which was quite inspiring. And I'm talking about teachers and coaches alike, and in all the sports that I took part in. And then same throughout university, we had a female coach part-time on staff, volunteer female coaches come in. And then the support and donation from the Carr family in 2007 allowed Peter Smith to become a full-time head coach. At that time, I believe he was one of the first, if not the first, to have a full-time position at the university level in women's hockey. So that was definitely groundbreaking at that level and at that time. And that was at the end of my first year as a student athlete. So at that time, I recognized how that support and donation from the Carr family opened the door to push the boundaries in our sport and within our hockey program as well. Peter was able to spend more time at the arena, on the team, and on the development of the players. And the following season, we won a national championship. So it goes to show that the support from the Carr family, the dedication, the passion that Peter had for developing players, and for the female game was truly inspiring and made a difference as well. I was always interested in teaching and coaching growing up. So working at camps and running practices. So after getting my phys ed degree was definitely something that I wanted to explore. My CEGEP coaches, so the ones that did coach me in CEGEP, believed in the game, believed in the female sport, and did give me an opportunity to get involved. So I went back, coached CEGEP for 3 years. The experience was definitely sparked even more interest that I already had in the field. And once the opportunity at McGill came, that I wanted to give it a shot for sure. At that time, I'd been teaching at an elementary school and coaching at Dawson College and playing for the Montreal Stars. So it was kind of all over the place. And the full-time assistant coaching position at McGill did allow me to put everything in one spot, the teaching, the coaching, and the hockey. I obviously did gain a lot as a student athlete that did prepare me for the position as an assistant coach, and time management, the organization, working with others and as a team, and the ability to adapt and persevere. And then the transition to join McGill as an assistant coach, I was extremely well guided and prepared by Peter Smith. I started off slow, or I guess what seems like slow now. And every year as an assistant coach, we added to my list of tasks and responsibilities. So anything from behind the scenes administration tasks to the on ice development. And I think the biggest piece is he believed in me and fostered an environment for growth. He's always coached women's hockey for so long, so he's well into the sport and supportive of female student athletes and coaches.
Very interesting, Alyssa, because you're speaking to a first opportunity, even for Peter Smith, a male head coach stepping into a position full-time for a women's sport. There's a say that says that the chance is basically when preparation meets the opportunity, right? And I think that combination of you being interested in building skill set in addition to having these opportunities, I think that what's making it work, right? And it's interesting because then, Ashley, you also graduated from McGill, stepped into coaching, but what did it look like in terms of opportunity that, Alyssa spoke to in terms of your own environment, women's volleyball? Was it similar, different? You're working at Dawson is an opportunity in itself and also in coaching.
Yeah, I kind of just fell into coaching. I've always had, a passion for people. I've always wanted to help people, and that's why I wanted to pursue my education in secondary education, so I can help, young people. But really, I came up playing through the French system here in Quebec, and I had to overcome many obstacles. The biggest one being the French language, because I'm an Anglophone, and so I fought a lot to get to where I was as an athlete playing at McGill from 2012 to 2015. And then once I decided that, I had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish in the sport as an athlete, I had free time to look around and see what was going on around me. And my younger sister was playing volleyball at Dawson College, and she was in her final year, and she would come home and complain every day about, the issues with the team, poor leadership, just, the game not being played to the way that she, hoped it would be. And I felt badly for her. I didn't want her to have a final, year that she would regret. And, we come from a very strong volleyball family. My mother was a coach. My brothers all play. Everyone in my house plays volleyball. So I decided to go to her practices and see what was going on. And I just started offering my services, as a volunteer coach. And I worked with the head coach, and we were able to salvage the season, and really my motivation was to help my sister initially. But then after I realized that there's, even though I hadn't come up through the English side of volleyball, there's a huge discrepancy between the quality of the game, the coaching, everything. So my heartstrings really got pulled on through that experience. And in the fall of 2016, I became the head coach of Dawson College. So I've been really dedicated to trying to help, our young English female athletes try to reach a level of the game that they wouldn't necessarily be able to accomplish without switching over to the French side. And I've been very blessed that I was able to, join Rochelle again at McGill as assistant coach in 2019 before COVID took everything away from me. But yeah, so I realize now that, I loved my experiences as an athlete, but I feel so much more fulfilled in watching my athletes develop and watching them succeed. And the feeling that I get from that doesn't compare to what I experienced before. So now I'm kind of stuck in it, which is great. But I just realized, I developed a new love for the sport in a different way.
Oh, very interesting. And we were talking before we started about not everyone wants that, right? Not every female athletes will transition into coaching. Some have the passion for it. Alyssa, you referred to it. But some, like Marika, who's been a great basketball player at McGill, you've decided to go on a different journey, Marika. And again, for everyone here, Alyssa, Ashley, what was the key driver for you to transition? Marika, because you've got a different story. And I know you're passionate. I've worked with you and I know you're so passionate about sport, but you made it happen.
Well, first, thank you for having me on today. Thank you, Sylvie, Tia. Yes, well, I've never thought that coaching was something I would do. I'm interested maybe in kind of helping out, but really being like a head coach or something. It's not for me, I believe. But throughout my career, so I played at McGill 3 years, And after my 3 years, I kind of realized that I was very, like, not that I was like bored of basketball or anything like that, but I felt like I was very curious, excited to start something new, to have an impact somewhere else. So not on the court, but maybe, outside of the court, but still, working in basketball. So I knew I have to put a lot of hours, a lot of time, effort into my career if I wanted to, have kind of reach my goals outside of the sport, like outside of playing the sport. So I decided to stop, and then I got an amazing opportunity with McGill Athletics in communication. So it was amazing opportunity because you get to, like, while I was studying school, while I was finishing school, I got the opportunity to work as communication administrator for McGill Athletics. So it's like a good transition because you're not totally out of the sport. You're still involved with, your friends at McGill. You still see them every day. So I started with 5 hours a week, then 10, 15, 20, 25. So it was really an awesome experience. I'm super thankful for McGill to kind of allow their student athlete to transition and get it like hands-on experience, because when you're an athlete, especially at university, we all know it's very tough to find time to work, with the schedule, with practices. So it's tough to get a lot of experience in your resume. So that was really good for me. So this is where I got really my first real work experience there. And I learned a lot. And then at one point I felt like maybe I kind of needed to diversify my portfolio a little bit because it was a lot of McGill. And I'm like, how can I get, still stay connected with McGill, but then get a little bit of experience somewhere else. And then Sylvie offered me a great opportunity to be a part of the McGill Women in Sport program as well. So it was great experience, learned so much from her. And then I started freelancing. So I'm like, how can I, get some hands-on experience without necessarily having a full-time job in sport? So I started, trying to build my own personal brand, started to offering my services to like sport agencies who might need, 5 hours a week, some help on social media for their athletes. So that's what I did. And still like not necessarily sure exactly what I wanted to do. Like I'm interested in different things. I don't consider myself a specialist or anything like that. I like to learn how, a full sport organization works, like how, maybe potentially later on being a leader or something of a sport organization. And then I got another great opportunity with the new CEBL franchise, so the Ottawa Blackjacks. So the CEBL is a Canadian professional basketball league that launched 2-3 years ago. So it's going to be the third season. But then Ottawa launched their team a year ago. Like last year was the first season. So then I'm like, oh, professional basketball, not too far from Montreal. I could move there, no problem. And because I did some networking in the past, I had connected with someone. So it was kind of easier to apply for the job. And then they gave me the opportunity. And it's been very like an incredible journey for the past year. I learned so much.
But you represent like a women in a men's pro environment, and I mean this is something, and we start seeing more and more stories now as the first female to be in the CFL or different pro environments, and so I think this is great. I also saw that the Ottawa Blackjacks have a women assistant coach.
Yeah, so the league and the team is promoting gender and supporting gender equity very well. So I'm really proud of the league and of the team. I think they're leaders in Canada for that as well. And so the Ottawa Blackjacks are the first assistant coach, so women assistant coach for professional sport, and the only one in Ottawa. So like among all the teams. So it's good because I guess it's like a first step for the nation's capital, but I hope the other teams, like everywhere in Canada and in Ottawa, kind of, see it and get inspired by it.
We for the people with us today live, we're going through a different different people, different experiences. And I think it's great. And Jose, I want to get to you because for as long as I've known you, you've come to me to share ideas about engaging women, and you've never given up. And you also live in that landscape. So tell us more about like your passion, interest in offering opportunities for women, but your passion for gender equity, I'll call it that way.
Well, thank you for having me. I'd say I guess it started when I would start in coaching. I had some of the same struggles that I guess women live right now, which is finding the full-time job, which is taking the leap of saying, I'm going to go into this and see what happens. I think more guys tend to do it, but maybe women don't as much. But I had that struggle, right? Before in soccer, you had to have an accent to be a good coach. You couldn't just be a local Canadian that says, I want to be a coach and be good at soccer. That wasn't a possibility. And then finding the opportunities were very difficult. If you were new to the group, you were sent to the women's side. You weren't sent to the men's side initially, right? That was just the way it worked. And then the struggles were, Jose, if you're working with the women's side, you're going to be labeled a women's coach. And that's just how good you're going to be. Well, all of that kind of happened. And me just saying, I don't care. I want to make a living out of soccer, even though it's extremely difficult. I'm just going to go for it. Two different women gave me my first opportunities in real, like, high-level coaching. Terry Ciani, at first, I was a goalkeeper coach and worked with her in private clinics with goalkeeping. And then there was Valmy Ouellet, who also gave me opportunities to work with her. And then seeing great leadership from those two women, me being an assistant coach to those two women. I'm a pretty big guy, takes the space in the room quite well. But here I am playing with them and working with them and them including me in their environment. So I guess that's kind of how I was brought up into the sport, into the higher level of sports, was with women being the leaders. So me clearly seeing it's there. Like when people don't see it, you just don't know. Kind of like if we're talking about racism, same thing. It's just because you don't know. And once you start knowing, once you get involved in it, you'll realize that they're at the exact same level. They just need more opportunities. So I guess from that moment on, it was always, okay, how do I give more opportunities to women? And that's just how it was. Regardless of the environment I was working in, was okay, let's give more women opportunities and get them exposed. Biggest challenge would probably be kind of like what Guillen kind of brought up before, was the perception from the outside. And I would say as well, the people wanting to take the risk, people believing that they can actually accomplish it and make something of it. Every time I have a conversation with a person that I feel can do it, it's, well, Jose, am I going to make a living out of it? Do I give up my academics and all my studies? My parents have worked hard for me to be in school and to go into whatever path they went into. I guess I did the same thing. My parents thought I was going to be an engineer because I had the grades, and I applied to McGill as an engineer. But one conversation with one coach changed everything. So I kind of said, I'm going to be the one that's going to change some of these young women's perceptions and saying, you're going to do it. And I guess my usual has always been a 3-year plan, where I tell young women, in 3 years, you're going to be making a living out of this sport. Just work your butt off, invest yourself completely, and screw what people think, and just go for it. And in 3 years, you're making a living out of it. And so far, so good. It's worked out for everyone. I've made that promise, which is, I guess, an empty promise, because it's really not to my control to give people the career. The Carr family helped incredibly in that department, where it has helped, for example, Kelsey right now, where she can say, you know what, I've got this opportunity and I can go completely invested into it. And just me sharing some time with Kelsey is seeing how she's grown because of that opportunity. And we need more people to trust, to believe in that, and invest, at the end of the day.
And Jose, I can relate to what you're saying. I mean, you spoke about willing to take the risk. And I was the one only female coach stepping in, but I can tell you that not having other women around me, it was men that made a difference, but I was willing to take the risk because they were providing a safe support. And I wasn't there. I was not there, but the safe support made me grow into that position. Any position that I've taken, that's exposure. But along with that, speaking to support is also speaking to mentorship, and you're doing that great. Chet, you've gone, like Elisa, you've gone through like being mentored as well, and have been, I won't call it lucky, but I think if we have that safe space, it's great. Ashley, for you, you're right now going through or being supported through mentorship with the Black Female Mentorship Coach Program. And you face some barriers over time. I think Guillen has alluded to the question, and I want to go back to that. Like, what were the specific barriers that you had to overcome?
Well, like I said previously, I had to face a lot of barriers with language. So learning French, I had never studied in French until secondary 5. I decided to make the switch, go to French school. I did half of a year. And then I was like, you know what? I just want to pass my classes and get into a CEGEP. So I went back to English school. Then I went to Bois de Boulogne for 3 years. I had an amazing experience there. I had great coaches who were very supportive, very understanding. But I definitely had problems. I had situations that were difficult for me in terms of, being a Black woman. I had one experience that still like marks me to this day, where I went to a provincial championship, and at the provincials, they give out the awards for the all-star teams and everything. And usually the all-star teams are chosen based on stats. And I was never someone that checked my stats. My mother is obsessed with stats, so she would always let me know where I was, but I was never in it for that or for the recognition. However, because I was getting this information, I knew that I was 3rd overall in the league in Division 1 volleyball in Quebec. So everybody was telling me, Ash, you're going to be on the all-star team. Like there's 2 all-star teams that you can make, so you're going to be probably in the top, 12 or so girls. So I had this in my mind, even though it wasn't my priority or my focus. So when I went to the provincial gala, there's the men's teams there, the women's teams, everyone's there, all of my friends that we've been playing together for the past, 6 or so years. And the all-star team starts getting called out. And if you were to look at the stat sheet for that year, you would see that number 1 was called, number 2 was called, number 4 was called, number 5 was called, number 6, and so on and so on. There were girls who were named on the all-star team who honestly, no one even really knew about. And everyone at my table and everyone in the room, guys and girls alike, my coaches, everyone was just, in shock. And then asking me like, are you okay? This doesn't make sense, blah, blah, blah. And I had to keep it together, because you can't be Black and emotional. You can't be Black and angry. So, I had to try to, keep a, happy face on. Thankfully, my mother also attended all of my tournaments, so she was very close by. So honestly, I just told my coach, I called him and I said, I'd like to go, I'd like to be alone tonight. So if you would let me, I'd like to stay in the hotel with my mother because I need to process what just happened. And, obviously I've been Black my entire life, but I had never really experienced that kind of overt, I don't know what to call it. I don't want to use the wrong word, but I had never felt that before, and it's hard enough walking into rooms, walking into gyms and you're the only Black person there. But then to be, purposely looked over. So that was honestly a terrible night for me. I went to the hotel with my family and I just like bawled all night, called my dad, my brothers were trying to encourage me, everything. When I got home, my family had prepared like a poster board with like balloons and everything for me, and like wrote all these positive affirmations and everything. And then when I had attended practices that following week, I sat my coach down and I said, I need you to tell me what happened, and I need you to be straight with me. And like I said, I had an amazing college coach, Sylvain Noel. He's still coaching at Bois-Boulogne right now. And he's like, I don't want to say it, but you know what happened, and I'm sorry. And, we had a heart-to-heart there, and I respected him for that. And I respected him before that the situation even, took place. But, it was just a realization for me that obviously I knew growing up I had to work 10 times harder than everybody else. You can't be as good as everyone else. You have to be so much better. But it was just difficult, and that was one situation that I'll really never forget. It didn't happen to me again because I'm sure my coach probably complained about it as well. But yeah, that was just one of the many things that I've gone through as a Black athlete.
Thank you, Ashley, for sharing. And I think, Guillen, this really connects us with what I will say new in terms of what's out there, knowing more about intersectionality, because what Ashley's lived is, I think, referring to that first circle when we speak to the individual. There is more to it than just one circle. Right. And not that I want to go deep into the knowledge of it all, because I think people will be able to Google and go on, and we'll refer to the E-Alliance website later on. But I think that's what we refer to. You want to speak to it just a little bit?
Yeah. Yes, I think that this is something that we as white women have to be, and not just white women, but white people in general, all the privileges that we have. And knowing that all the research that have been done on the feminist side of research, at some point, we realized that it was all around white woman experiences. And then when you start looking at what define you as a person, it's more than just your gender. So it's social economic background, it's your culture, it's your religion. And so you have that, what I call a identity mosaic. I don't know if it's a word in English. Does that make sense? So you have different palettes that describe you. And when you have, like, you're a woman, you're Black, or you're an Aboriginal woman, or you are a woman with a disability, then so it's not just being a woman or being Black, it's being a Black woman. So that double layer makes those barriers that you have to face very different, and we have to acknowledge and recognize that. So I think that it's really, people are talking more and more about intersectionality, but it's really to have a sense that, yes, Ashley is a woman. Oh, yes, she's Black, but because she's both, then it makes it a different experience. And here I am saying that, and I'm white, but just to, so I can talk about, so I'm a lesbian. I'm white, I'm a woman. So that makes a unique experience that I've been through in sport, just not because I'm a woman, I'm a lesbian, I'm both. And that makes it different. So I think this is why people needs to know more about intersectionality and think about what does that mean regarding the different barriers that you have to face because of what makes you who you are, really.
And that brings me to another question that ties within, as far as role model, like speaking to Ashley, did you see other women, Black women coaches that made an impact on you? Like you referred to your mother. But before I open the floor for discussing the role model and the impacts, people with us today, if you and Tia, you'll be managing those questions. Start sending questions if you haven't. Tia, you're managing that. But as they come in, maybe for our panelists, now that we've gone around and had everyone speak, you may want to direct your question specifically to someone or a general question. But for you all who have been your role models and the impact. And, you know, I was looking at a research recently where people were asking, like, was it your mother, your father, or a family member, or like anyone in the sport world or outside? But it was interesting to see that many of the women had written their father. So anyway, so just opening the floor, like, who have, and Alyssa, you spoke to obviously Peter, who you've worked alongside for many years, but at the beginning, or who've been people of impact in your life?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I mentioned, throughout high school, I had great coaches and teachers that influenced my path then. Ones who, they were young, passionate about helping others and teaching. And again, there were a few that were passionate and believed in the female game. And I mean, we didn't have a high school team when I started in high school, and there was a male who supported us and built a team, and I was able to start a team at that high school. And but it's having those people that believe in the female product, the female game, what females can offer. So definitely then, even younger, I would say my, like, opposite to I guess what you just mentioned is my mom, being able to explain and help me through those situations I faced as a girl playing amongst a league of boys, just pushing through and persevering. Don't let anything matter to you. Anything that someone says, don't let it affect you. It's what you're doing that's going to matter. So what you can control, worry about that side of things. And then further, again, as I mentioned, is CEGEP. I had a tremendous group, and amongst that group, it was 4 coaches. 1 was a female. The 3 others were males, and they supported the sport, the females. They wanted them to move on and get an education in university, find a team to play for. So having, and then as you mentioned, I mean, Peter Smith has played a big role as a student athlete, but also as a coach now. And but having those people that believe in you, and I'll mention it again, believe in the sport and the females that are part of sports. That's the huge part.
Tia, I'm gonna connect you because you haven't had a chance to speak, and Jose, you know, you've exposed your athletes to role models, but you know, what has it been for you?
Yeah, I can definitely speak to this. Growing up playing, I never had any female coaches, but I was lucky enough to have those good male coaches that believed in me and believed in my sport and pushed me to be the best that I could be. And then even getting to McGill, Jose, awesome coach. And then we were so lucky to have Kelsey. And having Kelsey, I was like, whoa, this is new. Like, I've never had a female coach before. And it was just such a different connection that I was able to grow with her, and really like improve not only me as a player, but also me as a person. So yeah, that was my experience, and just like with allyship that we've talked about earlier of, yes, my coaches were male, but they were so for female sport and pushing me, especially Jose. Yeah.
Anyone else on this role model?
I guess I can chime in a little bit. So before I go into what I wanted to say, there was another woman that was a head coach of mine when I was a player, and I was in hockey in the minor leagues, and she was a woman, Linda Butt, and I still see her. She's still an educator, and I've crossed her paths with her here during the basketball jamboree, and then there she is, a tiny little woman, but made her space in the world of hockey, and it was awesome to have her. So I guess I've been surrounded with, I guess, badass women all my life, which is kind of cool. Guillen brought a good comment in the chat, you know, asking me about my role as bringing more men into the ally role, I guess, or exposing them to coaching women, because there is that, you know, label, if you want to make it, and it's stupid, but it's, I guess people do make it because of the unknown. But the 2 men that are working with us at McGill right now are both guys that have never coached women in a competitive setting. They've done it in sport études or in little clinics here and there, but never in a competitive setting. And sure enough, Patrick, being the first one, when I brought him in to McGill, was for the men's side, and then I switched to the women's side as the head coach. And I said, look, how about you coach with both sides for 5-6 months, and once you experience both, you tell me where you want to be. And sure enough, 6 months later, he goes, Jose, I'll be with you in the fall. I'm like, great. And then Theo, my goalkeeper coach, the most macho guy you can think, very Greek in his behavior, very, very old school in his behavior. Probably hasn't washed a dish in his life because of his whole thing, but he has a dishwasher, so don't worry. He doesn't put his wife into that category necessarily. But very macho kind of guy. And he takes the job when I offered him to be a goalkeeper coach for us at McGill. And sure enough, you can see he's all into it, but there's something missing. And then we play University of Laval at home in one of our games. Game, I believe, finishes either 0-0 or 2-2. I don't remember the exact score. I want to say 2-2. We finished with a tie. And he comes into the dressing room where we have our coach's room. And he comes in, he's like, Jose, that was awesome. I never thought women could compete that way. And this was an incredible experience. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And from that day on, he's not even considering coaching competitive on the men's side anymore. I think he drops his son's teams as well. And all he wants to be a part of in terms of competitive soccer is with our group. And again, it's just that thing of the unknown. So yes, I'm promoting, I'm trying to get as many, women that want to do it or have the idea of doing it to just jump in and do it. But bringing more men into the environment, I think, is a huge thing as well. And I don't know very many men that have come and worked with a bunch of girls that really want to play and that are competitive and that want to be there and that want to enjoy that environment, come out of it without wanting. I'm looking at Marika right now. Ryan Thorne being on the women's side, he came in as an assistant coach to a woman head coach, took over the job, loves it. And I guess, I don't want to say he didn't want to go to the men's side, but the opportunity came up. And I think if it weren't because he had an assistant coach on the women's side that was ready to take the job, I don't think he would have left to the men's side. I think he would have stayed on the women's side because he enjoyed the experience. Like, he just loves it so much. And he said, those are my girls. This is the program I built. He didn't want to leave. However, he had a woman that was there and the opportunity needed to go to that person. And he's like, okay, she's ready. She's going to kill it. I'll go to the men's side, open that door up and I, and just go about it. And if that's a reality that happens to me and Kelsey can take my job in the near future and I can move on to something else or to another role somewhere else, so be it.
And we know these people, these men will actually have an impact on the bigger landscape. Speaking to Patrick, who is in charge of a whole district. So we know these people will be acting not only in McGill, but outside of McGill as well. And with Ryan in his position, I think he can also look at, inviting women at the table to be a part of, like Marika, part of the men's sports as well. And that's a little, maybe a bigger challenge, but it is happening. We're getting close to the end. Tia, I'm not sure if you have any questions. I would have loved to have Marika speak to branding because we speak to role model, but we need to be there on the media sphere, right? If we're not shown, if we don't see, how can we be? I mean, I'm calling it that way. That's a little hand to our video that we're going to show at the end of this panel. Stay with us because that's going to be our ending. But a short word, Marika, on the importance of branding. That's your area.
Yeah, well, I know it's not like social media is not everybody's thing. Like, we don't necessarily like to be on social media. But at the same time, I think it's something that's unselfish to do. Like, a lot of people can reach out to us on social media. Like, if you're not anywhere, not on LinkedIn, not on, Instagram, it makes it really hard for, younger girls to connect with you, since, like, especially the younger generation is a lot on social media. So it's just easy for them to connect with you, be inspired by what you're doing, by what you're posting every day. So to me, it's something that's important. Like, your goals, so you try to reflect that on your social media. And if you can inspire other people to just kind of reach out to you, like, we were talking about role models. I've had great role models, and one of them is Marie-Laurence Archambault. So she's currently working for the NBA in New York. Right now, I'm not sure, but she was like 2 years ago the only Québécoise to work for the NBA in New York. So we have NBA Canada, but she's working in New York. And I've been really inspired by her because she's coming from a similar background, you know, from Quebec. She played basketball. And like when I reached out to her, she responded, and she really helped me. She offered me opportunity, volunteering with them, and it's been really awesome. And to me, it's very important because even if we're not there yet, we can still inspire people who are looking up to you and like looking up to us, who are doing, like, we all inspire people. So I think being on social media and building that personal brand is important for that.
And you're so right. We have an impact on, sometimes we don't even know we do, but we inspire people. So I want to thank our panelists. We're getting to the hour, not only for your presence, but the support given to the Women in Sport program since the beginning. And I know you continue to do so in different roles, speaking to McGill, to Guillen on a regular basis, and our McGill people around. And thank you again for being there. I'd like to invite people in attendance, if you are listening to the replay, to reach us, like, feel free. We're posting now how to, you can write to me questions, provide your input at the following address that you see on our web page. Will come up on March 8th, so you'll be able to get to that page and see more about our program. And again, I think I said it will be released on March 8th, Women's International Day. Also want to quickly allude to E-Alliance. That's the new research hub where Guillen is a co-director of it. If you want to know more about women in sport, gender equity, we invite you to go to the webpage. Same as us, on March 8th, they will launch some great one-pagers. To end, we're pleased to show our first video montage. Thanks to Marika Guérin, who conceived the pre-COVID script, as well as TLR in COVID revisiting the script because we weren't able to finish it, and also acknowledgement to Simon Bélanger, our producer. Thanks also to our CUMS team for their support as well. So Tia, I'm launching it. Go for it. And off we go. Voila. Many thanks for attending our session. And again, reach out to us for any questions or provide your input. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.